Hello and welcome to Calls. This is the 2023 Zozo Data Dive Show. Before I forget, we have a different schedule this week with the tournament being played in Japan. The DFS Tactics Show will move to tomorrow night, Tuesday evening, 9 p.m. Eastern, which I will be live again tomorrow on Twitch in the morning, doing some more research around the Zozo, doing some DFS stuff as well. But anyway, we're here for all of the Zozo data that we can get our hands on and to analyze it. So let's get right into it. All statistics provided tonight and every night are from fantasynational.com. It is the best tool out there for anything golf analytic related. It's going to make you a much smarter gambler and a much better DFS player. Go check them out. It's well worth your investment. In the description to the video, there are links to all of my social media. This is Twitter, Instagram. This is where I place the research that I find throughout the week, including earlier today around the two winners of the Zozo when they have played here at Accordia Narashino. I did a lot of that research today on Twitch. So give me a follow at the links to Twitter and Instagram if you want to see some of that research in summary form. I also place my betting cards to Twitter the night before the tournament, so I'll be doing that Wednesday evening. So if you want to see my betting cards, give me a follow at Twitter. And then my Discord server and Twitch link is also in the description. So if you want to see more of the content that I create instead of just the YouTube shows, give me a follow at the links in the descriptions. And then finally, we're live. Chat is open. Want to hear from you all. Can you guess who the players are that I reference from Twitter in the research? Considering the factors that I put forward, there were 3 players that qualify. So jump in chat or put it in the comments if you think you know who the 3 players are in the field this week that qualify under the circumstances that I put forth. But enough of the rambling. We've got a lot of data to dig into, so let's get into it. Let's dig into the weeds of the data for the 2023 Zozo. And we move over to Fantasy National. And there's not going to be a whole lot of jumping back and forth between Excel and Fantasy National tonight. With the sparse amount of data that we have, we're going to get and dig in as much as possible on a lot of these different metrics to get a feel for who we think has a leg up this week in Tokyo. So one of the first things I'm going to want to do, I'm going to want to look at short course performance. This course is less than 7,200 yards. It is par 70. It is very difficult, but none of the par 3s are above 200 yards, and there's only one par 5 that measures over 600. So generally it has been right around 7,100 yards, I believe. So I'm going to extend the timeline out to the beginning of the calendar year. So since January 1st, your top performers when a course is short, defined by Fantasy National as less than 7,200 yards. Those players are Cameron Young, Keegan Bradley, Troy Merritt, Xander Schauffele, Sung Jae, Tom Kim, Matthew Neesmith, Corey Connors, Tom Hoge, and Hideki. Let's see. Players that have played this event and played it well. Hideki is your defending champion. Keegan Bradley has played this event extremely well. He's played it twice. I believe an average finish of a top 10. Xander has played this event very well. Let's see. Corey Connors, I believe, has played well in his one event here. So a lot of overlap here between players that have played the Zozo when it has been in Tokyo well and strokes gained total on short courses. I believe that's probably going to be about the only thing we want to look at in terms of short courses. Have not looked at wind. I will do that tomorrow before the DFS Tactics show. Not a whole lot to do with putting. This is paspalum greens. That is what's most prevalent internationally, except for maybe in Europe. But I can give us a look here at some paspalum data. So I'm going to have to go back to the beginning of the PGA Tour season of last year. So September 13th, 2021. You've got 3 tournaments that are included in this. It is the Corrales, the Puerto Rico, and the Mexico Open. Sorry, I blanked for a second. The Mexico Open. So those 3 tournaments. So your top performers on paspalum green surfaces, your top putters: Davis Riley, Cameron Champ, Brandon Wu, Nate Lashley, Patrick Rodgers, Kurt Kitayama, Satoshi Kodaira, Ches Reavie, Stefan Jaeger, and Emiliano Grillo. So Kodaira makes a lot of sense. Japanese, plays paspalum courses a lot. Grillo, South American, makes a lot of sense. Sebastian Munoz, CT Pan, these players that are international, probably have a lot of experience growing up on paspalum surfaces, but not a lot to do here with putting, and it's kind of a educated guess at being paspalum. That would be my guess. They were listed as paspalum in 2020. They didn't have a listing last year, but I'm going to guess that they are paspalum and overlook 2021 as it was moved to the United States due to COVID. So 2021 we are not looking at. So there is a look at the putting data, what little there is. I'm going to remove that. I'm definitely going to bring in the time frame here back to June 1st. Take a look at a couple of other metrics, and then we're going to really dig into a lot here of the things that we can look at. So your top off the tee players since June 1st of 2022. It's a good thing I made sure I double check that. So your top strokes gained off the tee players with no filters, just pure strokes gained off the tee since June 1st of 2022. Those players are Hayden Buckley, Sung Jae, Cameron Young, Corey Connors, Emiliano Grillo, Brendan Steele, Tyler Duncan, Cam Champ, Troy Merritt, and Kevin Streelman. Okay, like Hayden Buckley had a fantastic Shriners has moved him up. Sung Jae, the same. Cameron Young's just very good off the tee. Corey Connors is more fairways oriented, which is what is needed here at Narashino. Lastly, let's take a look at strokes gained approach. It's my preferred statistic. Going to have a lot of it this week due to the lack of some of the data we can gather. So your top strokes gained approach players since June 1st. Tom Kim, Corey Connors, Mark Hubbard, Adam Shank, Xander Schauffele, Matthew Neesmith, Lee Hodges, Mito Pereira, Tom Hoagie, and Sung Jae. So again, quite a bit of overlap here. Matthew Neesmith was up there in terms of strokes gained total in short courses, I believe. You've got Corey Connors off the tee and approach, Sung Jae off the tee and approach. Brendan Steele's very close in both, very close in approach. He's 6th and off the tee. So yeah, lots of good stuff here. Surprising to see that we haven't seen a Victor Hovland sighting yet in any of these. He has not played all that much, and when he has, it hasn't really been all that good. 50th in approach, 49th off the tee. It's just surprising to see Victor Hovland that far down in terms of ball striking, but it is what it is. So we have done the strokes gained total when it is when it is short. We're going to take a look at strokes gained total when it's difficult. the past 8 rounds here at Narashino, half of them have been difficult. So 3 of the 4 last year, and then 1 in 2020 was difficult. You've only had 1 round where it was easy, and then 3 were average. So I am going to look at difficult. Not sure if I'm going to have many difficult metrics in the final mixed condition model, but I definitely want to see who plays difficult courses well. So I'm going to expand this timeline out again. So we looked at short. Now, your top performers when a round is difficult since January 1st of 2022. Those players are Sungjae, Keegan Bradley, Aaron Wise, Tommy Fleetwood, Wyndham Clark, Corey Connors, Colin Morikawa, Lee Hodges, Mito Pereira, and Hideki. So again, some more overlap here. Connors has been on a lot of these. Keegan Bradley, Sungjae. Hideki has now been up there a few times. Xander's just off of the top 10 with difficult. There's Victor Hovland, the first, high sighting that we've had of him. So again, we'll look at some difficult metrics tonight. Not sure how many are going to be put in the final mixed condition model, but definitely needed to be shown for your research. So with that, let's go ahead and move into some birdies and bogeys, and let's just go through the 2 years of the Zozo here at Narashino. We took a look at this last night at a few of these tabs, but it's going to be a good refresher, and then we'll look at 2020 as well. Eagles, not a lot of Eagle opportunities here. There just aren't. Now, Hideki and Sam Ryder and Tommy Fleetwood were the 3 best at Eagles, so they got their fair share of them. My guess would be maybe 2 during the week, but there's not a lot to be had. So instead, we looked at birdies and bogeys. So you had a 6.8 in the birdies, a 6.3 in the bogeys, and if you sorted, actually the birdies were much more, what's the word I'm looking for? Much more conducive to high leaderboard success. And again, remember, there were 77 players here last year. So a 28th is not nearly as high as it would have been, or as would it seem. But, a top 5, a runner-up, a top 10, a top 5, and a top 10, very strong. Then you had a middling from Naoto Nakashima. And then Hideki, your winner, was 7th. So very, very, very high correlation in the birdies. Whereas the bogeys, Hideki was your winner and was tied for the lead in bogeys avoided. But there were quite a few middling and subpar performances in terms of bogeys avoided. So last year, it was much more birdies gained. Well, let's look at 2020. Again, at Accordia Narashino, we look at birdies or better. And again, Tiger, all birdies. Hideki, birdies. Sungjae, birdies. And not a lot of eagles either. So, you sort on birdies, 13.4 from Tiger, 5.9 from Adam Schenk. So, there's a pretty strong correlation here. Your top 5 in terms of birdies gained were all top 10 finishers, and then more of a run of high-end finishers a little further down. Whereas in the bogeys, you start off with a 22nd, 2 top 10s, a top 15, and then another 22nd. So looking more like birdies than bogeys for the Zozo. With that being the case, I don't think we're going to put any filter on For difficult, don't know if I want to put any filter for short. I'm not sure. But what we're definitely going to do, we're going to look at both birdies and bogeys, but more importantly, it looked like it was the birdies gained. So, since June the 1st, your top players at gaining birdies, just flat out, no filters, no anything, just birdies gained since June 1st. Emiliano Grillo, Xander, Tom Kim, Cam Davis, Taylor Moore, Maverick McNeely, Mito Pereira, Cameron Young, Matt Wallace, Victor Hovland, and Stefan Jaeger. If you want to go across here, Xander is top 10 in the bogeys avoided. Tom Kim is first in bogeys avoided. So third in birdies, first in bogeys. And Cam Davis is fourth and eighth. McNeely, 14th in bogeys avoided, is a honorable mention. But it looks to be much more of a birdie gained event than a bogey avoidance, which kind of surprises me a little bit, considering the winning scores here have been 10 under. Let's see, in 2020, 19 from Tiger, and then in 2022 it was 15 from Hideki, but the second place finishers dropped all the way to minus 10. So again, difficult, but the winners have been able to score here, or have in the past. So that's with no filter. Let's look at birdies when it's short. I think that's probably going to be more apt than birdies when it's difficult. It's not a guarantee that the course will play difficult, although it generally does, but it is a guarantee that it is going to play short. So your top birdies gained players when a course is short. Since January 1st, again, moving the timeline to have enough data. Those players, your top birdies gained players when a course is short: Cameron Young, Keegan Bradley, Adam Svensson, Hideki, Tom Hoge, John Huh, Tom Kim, Cam Davis, Peter Malnati, and Xander Schauffele. And you can see the relative lack of rounds here, like Hideki, Tom Kim, Xander. They only have 4 rounds when a course is short, and all of Tom Kim's is coming from the Wyndham when he won. So he is getting catapulted in these rankings by a tournament he won. Now, he just won this past week, so I'm not discrediting Tom Kim by any means. Just be aware of what is included in your data set. Whereas somebody like Adam Svensson is much, much more stable because he has 30 rounds on short courses. Sony, Amex, all the way through. In fact, he's only really missed one cut on a short course. That was the Wells Fargo. Not necessarily the biggest deal because this is a no-cut event, but his data is much more stable. There's a look at your top birdies gained players in general and when a course is short. Let's see. If we want to take a look at opportunities, I might as well just keep the short course filter on. All sorted again by birdies, but someone like Cameron Young, number 1 in opportunities, number 1 in birdies. Keegan Bradley's top 10 in both. Adam Svensson, Hideki. Interesting to see Tom Hoge. He is 49th in opportunities, but 5th in birdies. John Huh, 4th and 6th. Maverick McNeely, 10th and 12th. It's always interesting to see the players who have a lot of birdies and give themselves a lot of opportunities versus players that really haven't given themselves a lot of opportunities but still have the birdies gained or birdies are better. It's always interesting to see that side-by-side comparison. Like Hoagie just didn't get any pars at the Travelers. Pars were not acceptable. It was eagles, birdies, bogeys, or doubles for him at the Travelers. But anyway, so I always like to get an idea of who gives themselves the opportunities at least. Maybe not converting it, but they're at least giving themselves the opportunities. You can explain somebody like Luke Liss, he's just a bad putter. But like Callum Tarrant, I don't think Callum Tarrant is really all that bad of a putter. He's had one bad surface. Now he's been on a cold streak lately, sure. But he's, historically just been a below average putter, not awful. So you would think that if he continues to give himself the opportunities he has, he'll start converting. Okay. Let's move on over to fairways and greens, and this is one page view that we took a look at last night and really started to think about when we got to Excel as a part of what metric, if any, stood out. And last night it looked like it would have been fairways and or greens, but when we got to Excel, good drives gained wasn't really that big of a factor. So if we highlight here the top 17, you've got a few negatives all the way around here, but the fewest are in greens. And you got a massive number here from Hideki in terms of greens. So if we sort on that, like your top, what's this, 8 finishers, 5 of them are very, very, very good. Morikawa, Steele, List, Tringali, and Matsuyama, but the other 3 are pretty poor. Again, this is 52nd out of 77. So, okay. Fairways, nothing at all. I mean, yes, you have Mackenzie Hughes, but then, just a bunch of middling to poor finishes in a no-cut event. Good drives, again, not much. Hideki's all in the greens in regulation. And then these guys are all middling to, top 15 is fine, but they're all middling otherwise. So in 2022, it looked like greens. We'll take a look at 2020. Fairways and greens. So we don't get anything of the good drives gained. So it's just going to be a straight comparison of fairways and greens. Again, let's take a look at the top 16 due to ties. You only have one that is negative in terms of greens. So my guess is, there's not a lot of correlation here. Greens, there's a little bit more. It's still not strong per se, but it's much stronger than the others. So I'm pretty confident now that it's looking like greens in regulation is what we're going to be wanting to look at if we look at anything on this page view. So when a round is difficult, your top performers at hitting greens in regulation those players are Sepp Straka, Patrick Rogers, C.T. Pan, Russell Knox, Sung Jae, Alex Smalley, Adam Svensson, Adam Schenk, Joel Damon, and Cameron Young. And do be aware of the lack of rounds here. That's why, because I have the short filter on as well. My apologies. So let's rewind that, shall we? Because this could change a little bit. Again, always good to check. And it's more of a reminder to myself to make sure you know exactly what filters you have on. Because I had the short and difficult on. Now, with just difficult, your top performers in hitting greens in regulation when a round is difficult and nothing else: Corey Connors, Alex Smalley, Sung Jae, Xander, Brendan Steele, Adam Schenk, Mito Pereira, Cameron Champ, Patrick Rogers, and Lee Hodges. Much different list. So And the reason why I'm looking at greens when it's difficult versus greens when it's short is that greens are a statistic that will lead to more filters and metrics and whatnot. It's an indication of a lot of others, say like strokes gained approach or proximity, which we don't get either of those. We don't get this strokes gained approach. We don't get a proximity because Maraschino doesn't have shot link. So looking at greens kind of encompasses a lot of different metrics that we just don't have. Again, I don't see driving distance being much of a factor. The course is short. Sand saves didn't look like it was all that much. Scrambling is easier here compared to other PGA Tour courses, so not really a whole lot there. So I think I'm just going to be focused on greens when it's difficult. So there is that list of players there for you. Let's go ahead and move on into pars 3s, 4s, and 5s, and we're going to start with the most important one that I believe this week is the par 3s. So we took a look at this last night. The par 3s, pretty important. Hideki was one of the three that led in strokes gained total par 3. Not the biggest amount of correlation here, but then you came down some and you had a little bit strong correlation a little bit further down. 0 to 150, not really all that much. 150 to 175, there was none at all. But the 175 to 200 did have a bit of some correlation and had the highest number. So let's take a look at 2020 as well and see if that follows the trend. So in 2020, par 3s, a lot more important to high leaderboard success, with Sean Norris really the only clunker of a tournament. I can't even say clunker of a made cut because it's a no cut event. But you take out Sean Norris and everybody else in, what is this, the top 14-ish or so, all finished inside the top 20. So par 3s were really important in 2020. You got a 2.4 at the top of the 0 to 150. You got a 2.7 and a 5.4. So clearly the most strokes gained are being gained here at the 175 to 200. All of the par 3s are important, but most so in the 175 to 200, which makes a lot of sense because we have 3 par 3s from 175 to 200, and then one each in the lesser. But surprisingly, none of the par 3s are stretching into the 200s. So this 191 has never reached 200. Here's a 183 and a 180. So none of them stretch into the 200. You got a 167 that can get to the 175, I would guess. And then the short one, 141. So, all right. So now that we have seen that, your top performers on par 3s since June 1st are Tom Kim, Xander, Hideki, Stefan Jaeger, Sungjae, Satoshi Kodaira, Siwoo Kim, Mark Hubbard, Cameron Davis, and Taylor Moore. And going across, or scanning across to the 175 to 200, like Tom Kim, number 1 in total par 3s, number 2 from 175 to 200. You got Xander's top 10 in both, Hideki's top 10 in both, Kodaira, Siwoo Kim, Cam Davis, and Taylor Moore. All of those players are top 10 in both total par 3s and the par 3s 175 to 200. Sungjae is probably an honorable mention. He's 13th in the par 3s 175 to 200. Sebastian Munoz is 9th in 175 to 200, 11th total. So nothing wrong with that. Shank, 6th and 12th. good stuff there too. Okay, there's a look at your best par 3 performers. We're definitely going to single out the 175 to 200s in the mixed condition model for sure. We're going to have a lot of par 3, but also be looking at 175 to 200 as well. We'll move to the par 4s. More than likely, it was the 450 to 500, but again, always good to double check. So par 4s, again, pretty darn important in terms of upper leaderboard success. Although the data in Microsoft Excel said that they were mitigated in importance, you still have to play them well. So there's no denying that one there. Let's see, 350 to 4 is a 6.2 with some pretty good correlation there. 3.1 and not a lot. 5.5 and a 3.4. So really the 350 to 400 had the most strokes gained total, 6.2, and had the highest upper end leaderboard success. Now the 450 to 500 was probably more total. You take out Adam Schenk and Wyndham Clark. Okay. But 350 to 400 was the more strokes gained total number. Let's take a look at 2020. Par 4. Again, I mean, just a lot of correlation here with the par 4s. 350 to 400, 4.2, 5.7, 5.8, and a 3.1. So in 2020, it was 450 to 500, or 400 to 500 split between the two, 5.7, 5.8, and then 4.2 here. Your winner was more in the 450 to 500. So was Hideki. Rory was all in the 350 to 400. So again, the top 16 due to ties. You have 4 in the 450 to 5. You have 4 here. Okay. Still looks like 450 to 500 here in terms of the leaderboard. Let's do 2022 just to get a feel. And again, we're only looking at 2022 and 2020. 2021 was played stateside due to COVID, so we are not looking at that year as it was not at Nardashino. In 2022, you had 3, but they were all negative a half, 450 to 500. You had a decent amount here, only 2, but the numbers are higher here in the 400 to 450. So I'm leaning 450 to 500. They're all important because you have par 4s that measure in all of these ranges. But I'm thinking the 450 to 500 is probably the most important. So, again, checking to make sure there's no filters. Since June 1st, your top par 4 performers have been Xander, Terrell Hatton, Tom Kim, Sung Jae, Adam Long, Maverick McNeely, Corey Connors, Tommy Fleetwood, Andrew Putnam, and Martin Laird. Your players of those 10 that are also top 10 in 450 to 500, Terrell Hatton, 4th. Sung Jae's number 1. Maverick McNeely, Tommy Fleetwood. Those are the 4. Then you have an honorable mention here. Callum Tarrant is 11th in total par 4s, 8th in 450 to 500. Bezadenhout is 2nd in 450 to 500s. Wallace is 9th. But Bezadenhout and Wallace are top 15 in total par 4s. Okay. All right. Feel like Bezadenhout might be okay here because there's only one 500 plus par 4. He struggles at those. Wallace really struggles at those, and there's only one of them. But there are a lot of 350 to 400s, and Wallace tends to struggle at those too. But feels like Bezadenhout might be okay here. In fact, I'm going to check. Did he play this last year? He did not. Okay. He didn't play it in 2020. So this is his first go around with it, I think. Interesting. Okay. I don't know. Bazenu might fare well here. But there's a look at the par fours. Let's look at the par fives quickly, and then we'll move to Microsoft Excel and do some more analysis there. Especially since we don't have any proximity and such, we're going to nitpick around who has played this event well. But par fives, 5.7 here. Last year, some strong correlation minus Nakash. Boy, I can't even read that. Nakanishi. That's best guess. So look here, Tommy Fleetwood. All of his was in the 550 to 600. All of it. You have 3 from Colin Morikawa here. So definitely the 550 to 600 was the more important in par 5 range 2022. Look at 2020. Par 5s. Rory, most of his was in the 550 to 600. You had a 6 and a 2.6, yeah. So 550 to 600 par 5s are the more important range here at Narashino. So your top par 5 performers from 550 to 600 since June 1st. Stephan Jaeger, Emiliano Grillo, Aaron Wise, Cam Davis, Cameron Champ, Brandon Wu, Keegan Bradley, Sahith Theegala, John Huh, Ricky Fowler, and Hayden Buckley. All right. Really the only ones in that list of 11 that don't play the other length of the par 5 well. Cameron Champ, for whatever reason, doesn't play 600 to 650 very well. Granted, that's really weird to see since he's so long, but he doesn't. He doesn't play 600 to 650 very well. Keegan Bradley, John Huh. Okay. But there is a look at some of the stats from Fantasy National that we can look at for the Zozo. Again, no proximity numbers for the Zozo. No putting. So pretty limited in that regard. I mean, we don't even have the tee approach around the green and putting. So again, pretty limited. So taking a look at what we can for the Zozo. Let's move on over to Microsoft Excel. And I will bring this up first and make sure I change the view this time. Okay, so we noticed in 2022 that the fairways were in 2020 the fairways were very important, not so much in last year's tournament. Greens still seem to me to be the more important metric of these, with a number of 2.39. So let's just kind of take a casual look here, see if we can't find something that's somewhat close to 2.4, 2.5 maybe, a 2.3, just to get a feel for how important it is against other full field courses. And I say that, it looks to be fairly unique. Definitely on the lower end, I can tell you that. Well, what was the closest one? A 2.67 maybe, Mayakoba. So the Mayakoba, in terms of greens, is 14.5% less important. Okay. And the Zozo was less important than that, or the number was smaller than that. Okay. But it still seemed like it was the more important of anything in this page view. Eagles, birdies, bogeys. It looked like it was more on the birdies through the 2 years. It really highlighted in 2020. Let's see, you got a 2.2. That is roughly equal, and it's close to the Fortinet. So what's the Fortinet's birdie percentage look like? Minus 20%, so 20% less important. What about the bogeys? The bogeys are at 2.1. Anything? Yeah, American Express. So what's the Amex bogey avoidance? 18% less important. Interesting. This is the problem with having a no-cut event, or trying to compare a no-cut event, especially one that's overseas. It's not a whole lot of similar style data that you're comparing. Let's see. I'm still thinking we're going to be wanting to look at greens. I'm still thinking birdies. I could be convinced otherwise, but I'm still thinking birdies. Par threes, though, however, we're definitely going to be wanting to look at par threes, and the par threes 175 to 200. So let's see, you got a 1.84. Houston's at a 1.86. That's a pretty darn close comparison. Par threes, Houston 27.5% more important. That's more like it. So it seems like the par threes are going to be extremely important. You got 1.44. That might be one of the bigger numbers. You got a 1.44 on the par threes. 1.44. That actually is the biggest number. Yeah, it's the biggest number. So yeah, huge, massive amounts of importance put into this right here, this 175 to 200. Huge. All right, par fours. We saw that was probably the 450 to 500. Let's see. The exact number is a 2.9. That's probably the smallest. In fact, look at par fours, 2.9. Yeah, there's nothing even remotely close to a 3.0. So that shows you just how, in terms of strokes gained total, how little the par fours matter. 1.19 is the highest here. 1.19. There you go, 1.18, Genesis. What's its par four? 450 to 500. Now that's actually large compared. Okay, that makes sense. I'm seeing some 0.0s, 0.42s. Okay. 1.19 there. Par fours, I think it's probably just going to be straight par fours, to be honest with you. Like, I know I'm going to separate out the 175 to 200 par threes. Probably just going to look at par fours. If I do, it's 5% here, but I'm not convinced of it. And then the par fives, you know, almost 4/5 of your strokes gained total are here in the 550 to 600. So probably going to look at just 550 to 600, more than likely, in terms of a mixed condition model for the Zozo. And of course, no procs, no putting. But the more important thing, or the thing we can really dig into, let's analyze the players that have played here at Narashino, what they have done so well and what not, all of that good stuff. So again, no approach, putting around the green, anything like that. So I am going to keep the players that have only played it once That we only have 2 years, so it is what it is. Let's see. I'm going to come down to Kanaya. No. Let's get some players in here that have actually played it more than once as well, because there's only one in that group. I'll come down to Maverick McNeely. Players who have averaged a top 25, whether that be in their one trip or both. Fairways gained average about 1.5. Good drives about a 1.8. Greens is a 3.4. So that really makes me feel a lot better when I said that the greens were going to be the more important of the fairways and the good drives, and that really, really separates itself or shows itself here when you look at the players who have played this event well, their greens versus their fairways versus their good drives. Sand saves doesn't look to be like much. 0.3. Okay. So definitely greens. Because of that, I'm going to go ahead and sort on greens. Greens in reg gained. Largest to smallest. So of the players who have played here at Narashino, Hideki was very good at the greens. Ryo Hisasune, Danny Lee, Luke List, Brennan Steele, James Hahn, Maverick McNeely, Matthew Neesmith, Corey Connors, Fratelli, Grillo. He's not played this event particularly well. He has played it twice and averaged a 52nd. That's troubling. That's not very good. Morikawa, okay. Keegan. So there's a look at your top players that have played this event and their green and regulation greens and regulation gained performance was solid. What the heck did I do here? Let's see. Let's look at eagles, birdies, bogeys, and all that. Again, down to McNeely. So eagles is an average of a 0.1. Birdies, 2.6. 2.4. So again, very close. Still leaning birdies, but very close. And doubles is a 0.7. There's a lot of green up here in the doubles. Doubles avoided might be something, which is odd to think about considering if a guy is avoiding double bogeys, you should be, high up in the leaderboard, obviously. But take a look at somebody like Sam Ryder here. Sam Ryder avoided bogeys very, very well in his 1 year here, but he was not very good at avoiding double bogeys. So maybe that prevented him from being higher up than 7th. He also didn't birdie much. So that's an interesting case there with Sam Ryder. Morikawa a little bit in that regard. He's played it twice. Has not avoided double bogeys very well, but he has avoided bogeys well. But anyway, so it was 2.6 to 2.4 in terms of birdies and bogeys. Not sure. I'm still leaning birdies, but now seeing the green, perhaps double bogeys could be something. Par threes. So I'm going to do this all in succession. So down to McNeely. Par threes, average of 1.9. Par fours, 3.7. Par fives, 1.3. So as much as the data tells us that the par fours were more important, at least by strokes gained numbers, 3.7. The par 3s are so much higher than any other course around that these players play. It's a 1.9. That's one of the highest numbers I think I've seen. And you can just see the green to red, basically. Like Chez Reavie's a bit of an outlier down here. He's played the par 3s well, but hasn't played the others well because he hasn't done 4s or 5s at all. But he's played the 175 to 200 very well. It's weird. Anyway, I mean, it's a strong par 3 here. 0 to 150, 0.1, so right at average. Doesn't really matter. 0.2 and a 1.7. So again, just a whole bunch of emphasis here on the 175 to 200. I'm going to put emphasis on all of the par 3s, but a lot of emphasis on the 175 to 200. Par 4s. Let's see. So 0.9, 0.8. This is supposed to be the most important one. 1.3. And a 0.8. So they're all pretty darn close to each other, with the 450 to 500 being the 1.3. Again, I don't think that's enough to single it out. If it is, it's just 5%. But I'm just thinking it's more strokes gained par 4. And then finally, the par 5s should be 550 to 600. So you've got a 1.1 and a 0.2. Yeah, so all in the 550 to 600. So there's a look at some of the detailed information of the players here at the Zozo this week. Last thing that I'm going to do, as I do every week, will be to show you the mixed condition model that I had last year for the Zozo. Get a feel for how well it did, where I can move some of this percentage around, all that good stuff. So again, with only 77 people or 77 players, this is not a very good start. This was not a very good data model with all these high double-digit finishes. I mean, Colin Morikawa finished 7th, was good. Keegan Bradley had a 7th here. But this does not seem like it was a very, very strong mixed condition model. So I put 20% in approach, put 15% in par 3s, 10% more in the 175 to 200. So that seems pretty good. Some of the percentages might need to come back or be turned around or maneuvered or whatever, but those two are definitely going to be in there. I looked at par 4s, I had them at 15%. There's 10% I'm definitely getting back for sure, because I'm not doing anything total in regards, or strokes gained total. Although I did look at short course. I looked at greens when it was difficult to fairway. That's 10%. I'm going to keep that metric, but I'm probably going to put greens when it's difficult to par, not difficult to fairway. And that might need to be upped a little bit. So I'm definitely gaining 10% back here. Par 5s, I'm definitely gaining 5% more back here in terms of strokes gained total no cut. I did want to see who had played, no cut events very well. Opportunities gained I won't be doing. So that's another 5%. So there's at least 20% that I'll have to move around. I definitely had a lot of focus on the par 3s, which I'm going to need to do again. 20% in strokes gained approach seems a little high for this course, but then again, what else would you put it in? Because we don't know the proximity. We don't have Paspalum putting data. So I'm thinking the par 3s need to be amplified quite a bit. Definitely need to look at greens I'm probably going to do greens when it's difficult to par, not difficult to fairway. But clearly I was not correct in where these metrics aligned, considering the performance last year, when there was only 77 players and those top 3 in my data model finished. No one finished above or had a top 25. Morikawa, Casey withdrew. Keegan was a top 10, but then some more upper finishes. Like, that was bad. Oof. That was bad. So that's where I am leaning towards for the Zozo. Definitely going to try to learn from this one in terms of not repeat it. Lower the strokes gain approach. Amplify the par 3s. Amplify the greens probably. Just change this filter. Take away these. Take away that. Okay. So that's going to do it for the Zozo Data Dive show tonight. Again, a little bit of everywhere with some sporadic data that we can and can't gather. In the comments, let me know what wagers have you made so far, if any. What are you thinking about in terms of DFS? Do you think Hideki is a must play? Are you going to try to avoid him? I haven't done anything with pricing yet. I'll start doing that tomorrow on Twitch, which, reminder, I'll be live 10:30 a.m. Eastern. We'll be doing some Zozo research, wrapping up and prepping for my mixed condition models. So tune in on Twitch tomorrow morning. We have a good time. It's pretty laid back. Gives you pretty unfettered access to any questions that you want to ask and information you want to see and whatnot. Thanks for tuning in and watching and listening and supporting the channel all of the ways that you do, whether it's comment or like the video, all of that stuff. I certainly appreciate it. For all of the wagers that you've made so far for the Zozo this week, for all of the wagers you're thinking about making for the Zozo this week, and until I see you tomorrow night for the DFS Tactics show, may all your bets be profitable.